What do you do when the system meant to judge fairly starts leaning against you? What happens when your situation is no longer just about truth, but about politics, pressure, and pleasing people? And how do you respond when the only way forward is a decision that changes everything? A new governor had arrived. His name was Festus. He stepped into a position already filled with tension, unfinished business, and one unresolved case, Paul. For 2 years, Paul had been held under Felix. No conviction, no clear charge, just waiting. And now, with a new leader in place, everything had the potential to shift, but not necessarily in the way you might expect. Just 3 days after arriving in the province, Festus went up to Jerusalem. That tells you something. He wasn't wasting time. He wanted to establish relationships, understand the situation, connect with the leaders. And as soon as he arrived, the chief priests and Jewish leaders brought up Paul's case again. They hadn't forgotten, they hadn't moved on. Their desire hadn't faded. If anything, it had grown stronger. They urgently requested something specific. They asked Festus to have Paul transferred back to Jerusalem. On the surface, it sounded reasonable. A change of location, a closer look at the case, a chance to deal with the matter directly. But behind the request was something hidden, a plan, another ambush, another attempt to kill Paul along the way. The same intention, the same goal, just a different moment. But Festus didn't agree immediately. He responded with a decision. Paul would remain in Caesarea, and those who wanted to accuse him could come there, present their case properly, under Roman authority. That choice mattered, because without knowing the full danger, Festus had just prevented another attempt on Paul's life. Again, we see something important. Not every protection is obvious. Sometimes it comes through decisions that seem routine, ordinary, but carry deeper impact. Festus stayed in Jerusalem for a short time, then returned to Caesarea, and without delay he took his seat on the tribunal, the official place of judgment. He ordered that Paul be brought before him. This was not a delay like before. This was movement. The process was continuing. The Jewish leaders came down from Jerusalem, and once again, they stood around Paul, bringing serious charges, many accusations, strong claims. But one thing remained the same. They could not prove them. The words were heavy, but the evidence was missing. And Paul responded, not with emotion, not with frustration, but with consistency. "I have done nothing wrong," he said, "not against the Jewish law, not against Caesar." He addressed every angle, every possible concern, clear, direct, steady. Because truth doesn't need to change, even when the situation does. But now, something else entered the scene. Pressure. Festus, wanting to do the Jews a favor, asked Paul a question. "Are you willing to go up to Jerusalem and stand trial before me there?" That question carried more weight than it seemed, because it wasn't just about location. It was about risk, about influence, about stepping back into a place where danger had already been planned. Festus may have seen it as a compromise, a way to satisfy both sides, but Paul understood what it meant. And in that moment, everything came down to a decision. He stood there, listening, processing, knowing what was at stake, and then he spoke. "I am now standing before Caesar's court, where I ought to be tried." He didn't hesitate. He didn't leave room for confusion. He made it clear, this case belonged here, under Roman law, under proper authority. He continued, "I have not done any wrong to the Jews, as you yourself know very well." He acknowledged what Festus could already see, the lack of evidence, the absence of real charges. And then he said something powerful. "If, however, I am guilty of doing anything deserving death, I do not refuse to die." That's not fear, that's conviction. He wasn't trying to escape responsibility. He wasn't trying to avoid consequences. He was saying, if I'm truly guilty, I accept the outcome. But then came the turning point. "But if the charges brought against me by these Jews are not true, no one has the right to hand me over to them." And then the decision that changed everything. "I appeal to Caesar." Those 4 words shifted the entire direction of the story. Because appealing to Caesar meant one thing. The case would go to Rome, to the highest authority, to the center of power. No longer local, no longer influenced by regional pressure, but elevated. Final, official, and irreversible. Festus paused. He conferred with his counsel, considered the request, understood the implications, and then he answered, "You have appealed to Caesar. To Caesar you will go." Just like that, the path was set. Paul would be sent to Rome, not as a free man, but as someone under protection, under process, moving towards something greater. And here's what makes this moment so powerful. Paul didn't wait for the system to fix itself. He didn't remain passive in a situation that was clearly being influenced. He used the right he had, the authority available to him at the right time, in the right way. This wasn't rebellion. This was wisdom. Because sometimes standing firm means knowing when to move forward, when to take action, when to shift the direction. Paul didn't lose control. He recognized the moment and responded with clarity. This teaches us something important. Because there are moments in life when staying where you are is no longer the right choice. When the situation around you is not aligned with truth. When pressure begins to shape outcomes. When delays turn into compromise. And in those moments you have a choice. Stay silent, stay stuck, or step forward. Not recklessly, not emotionally, but with intention. Paul's appeal wasn't about escaping difficulty. It was about stepping into purpose. Because long before this moment, there had been a promise that he would testify in Rome. And now that path was opening. Not in the way he expected, not through comfort, but through process, through trials, through decisions that required courage. And that's often how purpose unfolds. Not in perfect conditions, but in real situations, with real challenges, requiring real choices. Paul could have said yes to Jerusalem. He could have taken the risk, hoped for a better outcome. But he didn't, because he saw clearly. And clarity leads to decisive action. There's also something deeper here, because Paul didn't just defend himself, he positioned himself. He moved from a place of uncertainty to a place of direction. And that shift matters. Because sometimes the most important move is not winning the argument, but moving to the right place. Being where your purpose can unfold, even if it means a longer journey, even if it means more waiting, even if it means stepping into the unknown. Paul chose direction over comfort, clarity over convenience, purpose over pressure. And that's a decision we all face in different ways. There are moments when the easier path is right in front of us, where compromise looks appealing, where going along with the situation seems simpler. But deep down, something tells us it's not right. And in those moments, the question becomes, do we stay or do we move? Do we accept what's in front of us, or do we step towards something greater? Paul's story reminds us that sometimes the right decision is not the easy one, but it's the necessary one, the one that aligns with truth, with purpose, with direction. And even if it changes everything, it's still the right move. Because at the end of the day, Paul wasn't just trying to avoid danger, he was moving towards something, toward a mission, toward a calling, toward a place where his voice would reach even further. And that's what gave him the confidence to speak, to decide, to act. So, as you reflect on this moment, think about your own situation. Where are you feeling pressure? Where are decisions being influenced by things that don't align with truth? And where might you need to take a step forward? Not out of fear, but out of clarity. Because your next step might not just change your situation, it might move you into the next chapter of your purpose. Just like it did for Paul. Thank you for watching this video. If this message spoke to you, don't forget to like, follow the channel, and share this video with someone who needs clarity and courage today.